Welcome, everybody. If you are comfortable turning on your camera, it would be great to see faces. If you're not, I understand that too. Sometimes you're in a place where you can't have your camera on, but if you can, it would be great to see you. Hi, Shelly. Welcome to our inaugural Affirmation Parent Fireside. I'm Shauna Jones. I am a board member of Affirmation, and I am the mom of a trans son. And I work with another board member, Allison Doyson. She is actually out of the country right tonight, so she's not here. But she and I are both parents of LGBTQ kids on the board, and we felt strongly that it would be a good idea to have a space for parents to come and gather and learn and just be able to talk to each other, learn from each other. And so this is kind of the first, our first crack at that. And we have, we're going to start out by singing As I Have Loved You. So if you'll all please unmute yourselves, because I don't want to sing you a solo. I will lead the music and we'll all sing together. And then Tiffany Bowes has offered to give us our opening prayer. So, okay, here we go. Ready? I'm seeing a lot of muted. Please unmute. Okay, here we go. Okay, Tiffany.
Our dear Father in heaven, we are grateful for the opportunity that we have to meet here together and to join as parents as we seek for thy guidance in how to best care for our sweet children and to be able to learn more about them and their needs and to be able to help them along their path through life. We ask thee to please help us that we'll be able to feel thy spirit this evening, that we will be inspired how to better love and support our children and our fellow parents who are walking this path with us. We're so grateful for the opportunity that we have to learn and to be able to grow in our knowledge. And we're grateful for thy son, Jesus Christ. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Tiffany. Our speaker tonight is one of my favorite people, really. It's Nathan Kitchen. He's the president, the acting president, current president of Affirmation. And I've had the opportunity to work with a few different presidents in my time with Affirmation. And I just really appreciate the love and the care that Nathan gives to this job. Like, he really cares about making it a safe and good space for everybody. So if you'll keep muted, generally, that would be great. After he speaks, we'll have time for a Q&A. And then if you want to stick around, you can just visit. We can all talk if you'd like. But without further ado, I'll turn the time over to Nathan.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for that kind introduction, Shauna. First of all, can you hear me okay and see me okay? Good. Sometimes Zoom meetings, although a necessity, can be a little, I don't know, unreliable at times, depending on internet connections. And as an organization, Affirmation meets together from people around the world who compose our board, and we do it on Zoom. And so you would think by now that would make me an expert on Zoom, but I don't know that anyone can ever really be an expert on Zoom. Affirmation runs in 3 principal languages, English, Portuguese, and Spanish. And so all of our Zoom meetings have interpretation going, and it's a small production in and of itself as we, as LGBTQ peers, create these loving communities of safety and hope for our LGBTQ peers around the world. Because wherever the church is around the world, that is where affirmation is. And I don't know if you know much about affirmation, but I'll share a bit about that with you here in just a few minutes. So Shauna, thank you. Shauna is one of our rock star board members and has really taken under her wing teaching and making a safe space for our queer youth, our LGBTQ youth, who come and intersect with affirmation, especially during our international conference. So yes, my name is Nathan Kitchen. I'm president, but I am surrounded shoulder to shoulder just with high quality people who stand in this intersection with me of being LGBTQ and Latter-day Saint and doing the great work here in the margins. So just to begin with, today was a busy day for affirmation. I'm going to share my screen periodically. So here is what affirmation was up to today. We were part of the Utah Pride March that began up at the Utah State Capitol and wended its way down about 3 miles down to Liberty Park. And as you can see from this picture, we marched right past the church office building there on Temple Square. This really is an exciting time to be part of the LGBTQ community. There's so many wonderful things that are happening both in society with LGBTQ civil rights and even within the church itself. And some of you may wonder what affirmation does exactly and who we are, but in a nutshell, affirmation confidently stands in the intersection of LGBTQ Latter-day Saint life. And we respond to the calls of our queer peers from the margins, rushing to render aid and build communities of safety, love, and hope. Our work is both immediate and practical. We provide a healing and supportive community of LGBTQ mentors who not only help contextualize policies and practices, but affirm and empower each one of our queer people, each one of the queer souls in the church as they claim their space to confidently and authentically stand in places that feel safe and healthy for them. So we center around the truth that each LGBTQ person just inherently knows the places that feel safe and healthy for them. And each person just has that gift of personal revelation where they know where they need to stand in this life, in the places that do feel safe and healthy for them. Because of this trust that we have with our peers, affirmation does not prescribe a path. We don't take positions on doctrine. But the one thing we do take a position on is the inherent self-worth and dignity of each LGBTQ soul. What we are doing is the pure work of bearing burdens, mourning with those who mourn, lifting the hands that hang down, lifting the chins of our colleagues, and listening to our peers and receiving their stories with reverence and respect. Because we're at this very unique intersection, we have a chance to interact with the church in Salt Lake. And we have been doing this regularly for many years, a decade plus. And when we do this, we advocate for the physical and spiritual safety of our LGBTQ peers throughout all the branches, wards, and stakes throughout the world. As president, I have met with the presiding bishopric. We gave a report on how we have been managing the $25,000 the church granted us to a suicide prevention program. We meet regularly with our contacts within the communications department in Salt Lake. And every time we do, they are so grateful for Affirmation. Just sincerely, last time we were just sincerely thanked for the work that we do in this intersection. Last year, and actually in 2019, I found myself invited by Brigham Young University to go to campus and help lead a discussion on how to build better relations between the LGBTQ community and BYU. So there are definitely things that are happening, and I'm grateful that Affirmation is in this space, and that we are in this space to be part of this dialogue. Now, the one thing that I know is, I'm grateful for the dialogue, but I do know that in all this talking and meeting, there is real world policies and procedures that are hurting LGBTQ people. For me, people always come first. They always come first before talking and dialogue. For me, the most important thing that we do in Affirmation is we render aid and we render care for all of our LGBTQ siblings that are in the margin. That's first and foremost. I mean, that is where Jesus would be, in the margins with the marginalized. And this is where Affirmation is. We are made up of the marginalized, and in these margins, we lift one another. So it's interesting in the position that I sit to feel that tension between the dialogue we're having of advancing forward and understanding LGBTQ people in a much better way than the church really has ever done. And then juxtapose that with the policies and procedures that are still often carried out on a local level that create a rejecting community for many of our LGBTQ Latter-day Saint peers. I'm going to share my screen again. I wish it wasn't so cumbersome to do this, but here we are anyway. All right. I'm screen sharing something for you, especially for your new parent, because there is a lot of question about support of groups such as Affirmation. And I am always reminded of Elder Oaks and Elder Christofferson, who spoke to Jennifer Napier Pierce, who was the editor of the Salt Lake Tribune, and gave a lovely, I think first ever video interview with the editor of the Salt Lake Tribune. And she asked Elder Christofferson, so what about Mormons who support same-sex marriage privately among family and friends, or publicly by posting entries on Facebook? Now, you have to remember that at this point in 2015, the Obergefell case was going before the Supreme Court. And so marriage equality was on the lips and the hearts and the minds of all people here in the United States. And so Jennifer asked this question, what about marching in pride parades or belonging to gay-friendly organizations such as Affirmation or Mormons Building Bridges? Can they do so without the threat of losing their church membership or temple privileges? And then Elder Christofferson gave this beautiful response to the editor of the Salt Lake Tribune. He just said, we have individual members in the church with a variety of different opinions, beliefs, and positions on these issues and others. In our view, it doesn't really become a problem unless someone is out attacking the church and its leaders, and in a deliberate and persistent effort, they are trying to get others to follow them, trying to pull people out of the church or away from his teachings or doctrines. So, this sets all of us as we support our children, not prescribing a path, supporting them, supporting our LGBTQ peers, of knowing that we can hold on to things that we hold to be true and work in the margins with our LGBTQ peers. So, with that said, I want to thank you to be in this Affirmation space here tonight. I'm just so glad that you are here. I know that for some, especially if this is your first time, gatherings like this can be a little scary and perhaps a bit overwhelming. I know even for me, as part of the LGBTQ community, my first affirmation conference that I went to was a bit scary and overwhelming. To be with people, to talk about subjects that you're trying to figure out yourself. And I hope that I can do justice to the tender feelings for family and the yearning for community that each of you bring to this fireside. Now, when I was in Young Men's many years ago, my favorite thing about firesides was the refreshments. And unfortunately, tonight, this is a BYOR fireside, which is bring your own refreshments. But, refreshments or not, my goal is still the same goal of any fireside. And that's to share thought-provoking information and tender stories to help you connect to your own spirituality and to help you navigate your own workings within your family that you are carefully navigating back home to our heavenly parents. My goal is to help you to get to know me a little bit better and to get to know Affirmation and the resources that we provide, not only for parents, but for you and your children, and just really children of any age. So, tonight we meet as parents of LGBTQ kids, and some of us are here are brand new to this. Like I said, it can be overwhelming, and this fireside is actually a very tender fireside for me because my own parents are here tonight. And I promised myself I wouldn't cry. I may be 52 years old, but I came out later in life, and I did this after I had been married to a woman and had 5 kids. In a few minutes, I'll talk about that. But my parents just had such a relatively short amount of time to process all of this information and assign meaning to it. And they were doing it alongside me as I was doing the same thing. And that is a lot of information for a family to process. And so I honor the space that parents go through. This is a family journey. It's the journey of your LGBTQ child for sure, but part of a supportive family, it becomes a family journey as each one in the family assigns meaning to what has happened and hopefully assigns support and love for that child. I'm so grateful today that there are so many Latter-day Saint homes that are choosing to go through this journey together as a family in understanding and affirming their children. I talked the other day with my mom, and she said, I wish that I would have known then what I know now. We would have handled things so differently. That was a very tender moment for me because we really did go through this as a family. As I was learning and growing, so were they. As I was assigning a meaning to what my own journey was, they were assigning their own meaning to that journey. I feel that when we afford our children the grace to make this journey to authenticity, and we support them, even if at times we do not understand them, it is life-saving. As parents, sometimes we can project the sorrows we feel in our own journey as we look at our children. And I am guilty of this as the father of 5 straight children. Sometimes they don't do what I want them to do. But that's a parent issue that we have to deal with. But when we afford our children the grace to grow and to become their full and lovely selves, it creates a supportive community within the family that really increases the mental health of not only the LGBTQ child, but the entire family together. It's true that parents sometimes can feel a loss, when this is happening, but I will always remember what my own mother told me way back when I was first coming out. And mind you, my parents are the most faithful and strong members of the church that I have never known. My mother has served in so many callings, including the Stake Relief Society president. My father is a patriarch. They both served a mission together in Moldova. I mean, that alone is going to get them to the celestial kingdom. It's the country of probably the most hardship in the world, and cold. And while they were in St. Louis, they served together in the temple presidency. So after just the initial shock of me coming out, my mom called me and said, and this was such a simple gesture. And it was, I think, a very emotionally mature gesture. She said, Nathan, I don't understand much about what is happening, but I do know this, that I love you. And I know that things are hard for you right now, but just know that I am thinking about you. I didn't need my parents to understand everything about me. I mean, I didn't expect them to go out and wave rainbow flags or celebrate something they didn't understand, but they at least understood that I was their son and that they loved me. And that alone was the life-saving basic foundation from where we started together. We know now from evidence-based studies, and probably one of my favorite is the Evidence-Based Family Acceptance Project that has come out of the University of San Francisco State University. It acknowledges and has been awarded the best practice for suicide prevention by the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, that supportive family reactions promote well-being and they help protect LGBTQ young people from risky behaviors and serious health problems, including mental health problems. These behaviors include, things as suicide, substance abuse, HIV infection. A supportive family bolsters your child's mental health, and it is shown that it decreases your child's chances by 8 times of dying by suicide than if they had been part of a rejecting family unit. The Trevor Project says that just one supportive adult in a youth's life will decrease suicide ideation and attempts by 40%. I mean, these are very large numbers. And it's not really understanding, because understanding comes in the journey, but acceptance can happen now of your child. For the younger parents here tonight, you're raising a family in a generation of the church that's very different from my own in how things are dealt with LGBTQ kids and youth and young adults. If you remember earlier this year, Elder Holland spoke to a young single adults fireside and just outright told our LGBTQ youth that the church loves them and wants to sit with them and support them and be brothers and sisters and siblings together in this journey through life. LGBTQ people are highly visible in the church. This is such a 180-degree difference from when I was a child. We didn't have many resources about being gay in the 1980s when I was a young man. And in fact, it turns out that really the major resource was the same resource that my parents were reading that I was reading, and that was The Miracle of Forgiveness. And that is a very harsh, not realistic resource of the beautiful souls of LGBTQ people here in the church or even on this planet. Unlike today, there just were no comforting words about being gay that were coming across the pulpit or in church magazines, none. I mean, if a general authority did speak about being gay, it would never be like Elder Holland. It was always condemnation. In fact, unfortunately, parents in that era were often blamed for making their children that way. That's just simply not true. We have so much evidence-based science behind both sexual orientation and gender identity today. So much so that even the basic idea that you just cannot choose your sexuality and gender identity, that is something that's inherently with you. And that evidence-based science has bled through into the church's official publications, for instance, on their own website. LGBTQ people do not choose to be gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, or queer, none of that. And that's quite a wonderful move, but there's still much more movement that needs to be done. There's still so much pain that is still present because of of the policies and procedures that are still in practice. But I want for a minute just to tell you my story, so you know where the mentors for your own children are coming from. You know, we're your elder statesmen. The church has been actively involved in LGBTQ thought processes for about 70 years now. And as everyone learns more, everyone changes and ideas change and the vernacular changes. But when I was a child, a youth, 17 in 1986, you know, I was digesting conference talks and church books like The Miracle of Forgiveness. And I was a very orthodox, believing Latter-day Saint young man. But I understood fundamentally from the things that I read that just because I was a gay young man, that I just wasn't acceptable in the sight of the Lord. So I remember sitting in general conference. This was back in the days when you would actually go to the church building and they would beam it in by satellite. And you would sit there, you'd watch it in the chapel and then go home and come back and watch the next session. So I remember it was 1986 and President Benson was just brand new prophet. He stands up and he gives this very moving invitation that it's time for us to cleanse our inner vessel. And that was my cue that I needed to speak with my bishop about who I was. Not anything that I had done, but just, you know, who I was. You know, the very normal thoughts that any child would go through as they begin to mature as a healthy sexual being, just were pathologized. They were pathologized. It was cast as a shameful defect, and so I felt shame when I did not need to feel shame. And in fact, the church does not teach you to feel shame anymore like this. And so I remember I made an appointment. I didn't even tell my family where I was going. I just needed to be just somebody between me and the Lord. I just needed him to just remove being gay. I knew he could do it. President Benson said I was supposed to cleanse my inner vessel. This is what should happen. So I'm sitting in this very dark foyer waiting for the bishop. I can't figure out where the light switch is. So the setting sun's going down. The foyer is dark. It's mimicking the feelings that I was having as a young man of just darkness. That was probably the most courageous thing I have ever done, ever, in my young life, was sitting there. And, you know, I remember the bishop opened the door and in the darkness, it just hit the light streamed out of his bishop's office. And the interview that was before me that had gone long had left, and he invited me in. And I remember through tears trying to tell my bishop what I was. And as I began to tell him that I was gay, he listened, but then he did something that was interesting. He didn't condemn it. He didn't do anything other than just discount it, and told me that these just were feelings that just really didn't matter. And you're really just a straight kid with just a shameful problem. And if you just remain faithful and obedient, then you're going to be okay. And he said, you just don't tell anyone about these feelings. It's just said, just go on a mission. Marry a woman in the temple. And he said, everything will be all right. And then the bishop reinforced my shame by saying that he just wasn't going to tell my parents about that visit, because such news would be such a disappointment to faithful parents. I was stunned, you know, that's all that it took to rid myself of being gay, you know, just pronouncement of do these things and you'll be fine. What you're feeling doesn't matter. Just put them away. If you do these things, then you will no longer have these feelings. So I confirmed with my mom a few years ago, you know, did the bishop ever really call you? And he didn't. It was nothing. That night, as a 17-year-old, I left my bishop's office. I was isolated. I had no good material, no good resources, and I was just making the best information that I could as a 17-year-old kid. And I just put all of my trust that I needed to obey my bishop's counsel with exactness, put all of these things away. Don't think about it. I had my marching orders. I knew exactly what I had to do. I knew who I shouldn't tell. And that's how I moved forward in my life. And I was able to push down these feelings for a very long time and really never speak to them again. I felt that if they were unimportant to my bishop, to either validate or acknowledge, that they would just be unimportant, should be unimportant to me. So I never had a chance as an adolescent to learn about that side of myself. Learn about a part that's very normal, that nowadays we know is a very normal thing to learn about and to explore and to nurture, so that such a thing can be nurtured in a very healthy way moving forward as a human here on this planet. So this course, it set me on about a 20-year voyage, marriage with 5 amazing kids, but the price of inauthenticity and having to manage my sexuality in a way that a straight person never has to do began to really wear on me. I became depressed. I didn't know why I was depressed. I was living the dream of what every straight Mormon man should be doing. I was having opportunities that people just only dream about in the church, but something was dying inside of me. And I realized that the only pathway forward to safety was to become authentic and just share with people who I was and understand myself, finally grant myself the grace to learn about this part of me that was there, but was being ignored and starved and dying. And unfortunately, when a part of you dies like that, it's a part of you that is dying, and it does not feel very good. So I just let people know what was happening with me. And as that happens, life just recalibrates around you when this happens. Here I was 40 years old, and I was meeting parts of myself for the first time. But so was my wife at the time, my children, my parents, my brothers, my sisters, my in-laws, my friends. Everyone was recalibrating around the new Nathan, not quite knowing what to do. And this dominant narrative that had been managing my lives, it was just very clear that the institution that I had built, a marriage with my spouse, just would not survive the authenticity. Little did I know that I was part of a whole generation of young men and young women back in the 80s who were led into mixed orientation marriages. Thousands upon thousands who were really led into this as a slow burn conversion therapy, where the straight spouse was used as part of a tool of changing your sexuality, because at the time that was the thought. And so if we can just get homosexuals to act like a heterosexual, they're going to change. But we know now that that's not true. And one of the great things I love about Affirmation is it helps people in my generation. We have thousands of people that we have helped and are currently helping that have been harmed by such arrangements. And gratefully, the church it's not an official teaching of the church anymore to bring people into mixed orientation marriages. There's something new, something that possibly could be just as damaging to a young man or young woman, which is lifelong celibacy, but mixed orientation marriages and the carnage it usually places on most people when marriages are lost and children are in tears wondering what just happened, and spouses wonder what happened, and the gay spouse, his entire life just recalibrates it. It's a time where you really need a supportive community, and that's what Affirmation is for people in my generation. But I can tell you that when everything did recalibrate, it was just wonderful. I mean, having spent 20 years in a marriage, you realize the safety and the importance and the team building and the great safety that comes from being with someone and being another person's person. And when I found my own Matthew, and we married almost 2 years ago, I mean, for the first time, I felt really what it meant, to be married, to have those obligations with someone else, and not do it out of obligation or duty or living someone else's dream, but actually choosing to live the dreams of my own soul, and to marry according to my own orientation. It really brought to life the words of Justice Kennedy when he wrote the opinion for marriage equality. And I want to share that with you because it's the closest thing I know of scripture to those who marry according to their orientation. And this is things that we all feel, straight, gay, about marriage. Justice Kennedy said that no union is more profound than marriage, where it embodies the highest ideals of love, fidelity, devotion, sacrifice, and family. In forming a marital union, two people become something greater than they once were. As some of the petitioners in these cases demonstrate, marriage embodies a love that may even endure past death. It would misunderstand these men and women to say that they disrespect the idea of marriage. Their plea is that they do respect it so deeply that they seek to find its fulfillment for themselves. Their hope is not to be condemned to live in a state of loneliness, to be excluded from one of civilization's oldest institutions. They ask for equal dignity in the eyes of the law. The Constitution grants them that right. The judgment of the Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit is reversed. It is so ordered. It's such a beautiful sentiment that really does capture how LGBTQ people feel when they can marry according to their orientation. And this is some of the support that we can give. And as parents, new parents in the church, when I was a kid, marriage equality wasn't a thing. There was really nowhere for me to go. It was either stay single in the church or just there was nothing else. And now parents, we have a choice of your children can legally marry now and have all the blessings that you have and feel the same things you do. It's really a wonderful sea change to know. I mean, our heavenly parents want us to have everything that they have. And we as earthly parents, we want the same, of course, for our own children. And now our children can have that same thing as well. Thank you for listening to that story. I hope that it helps bridge the gap between how things used to be to its situation and that we find ourselves in now as new parents here at this point in the church and both in society. There is a plethora of places you can go for really good information. People understand more about the mental health and the physical health and the emotional health of LGBTQ people. And we can help play a really great part in supporting our own children in their happiness and help them find the way for them to increase and live the very best life that they know that they can live, a life that we would want for ourselves, the life that our children can have. So one of the things that Affirmation does is we support, this generation of up and coming LGBTQ youth and young adults. We live in the age of Obergefell. We live in the age where transgender people are both much more accepted and seen in society, as well as very much discriminated against in society. It is a different place, than we have ever been. But Affirmation is prepared to help both you and those up and coming on what to do now. I want to share with you the resources that Affirmation has for you as parents. And we will be one place where you can come and you can find great resources. We are also a place where your children can come and find good resources and find their people, find people just like them who are asking the same questions, feeling the same things, experiencing the same things. That's one of Affirmation's greatest superpowers, is we create a worldwide network of peers. So no longer do you have to feel isolated like I did when I left my bishop's office. We now can connect people, not only same generation, but other generations together, as we all make the road easier to follow, because we have often been there first before ourselves. So again, let me share my screen. If you haven't been to our website, I want to talk a bit about the resources that are there, because that's a really great first place to be. I'm going to share our screen here again. All right. We can be found at affirmation.org. And it's a place where we have many different resources, both for LGBTQ people and their parents. As we scroll down, you'll see right on our landing page, what our mission is. And Affirmation's mission is to create worldwide communities of safety, love, and hope, and promote understanding, acceptance, and self-determination of individuals of diverse sexual orientations, gender identities, and expressions. We affirm the inherent self-worth of LGBTQIA plus individuals as complete, equal, and valuable persons, and support them as they define their individual spirituality and intersection with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I want to play for you some of these peers that are around the world welcoming you to Affirmation as they recite in their own language the mission of Affirmation. Welcome.
Aloha, bem-vindos.
Yemoan Aquaba.
G'day.
Tuesday, Yusufakune.
Bienvenidos. Welcome.
Mabuhay.
Welcome.
Mainito.
Affirmation creates worldwide communities of safety, of love, and hope.
A afirmação ela cria comunidades globais de segurança, de amor, de esperança.
La afirmación crea comunidades mundiales de seguridad, amor y esperanza.
And promotes understanding.
Acceptance and self-determination.
Y promueve la comprensión, aceptación y autodeterminación.
E promove a compreensão, a aceitação e a autodeterminação
Of individuals of diverse sexual orientations, gender identities, and gender expressions.
de indivíduos de diversas orientações sexuais, como identidade de gênero e expressões.
De individuos sexuales, identidades de género y expresiones.
We affirm the inherent self-worth of LGBTQIA plus individuals as complete, equal, and valuable persons.
Nós afirmamos o valor inerente das pessoas LGBTQIA+, como pessoas inteiras, iguais e valiosas.
Afirmamos el valor inherente de las personas LGBTQ como personas iguales, completas y valiosas.
And support them as they define their individual spirituality
And intersections with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Nós apoiamos na sua definição de espiritualidade individual e relacionamento com a Igreja de Jesus Cristo dos Santos dos Últimos Dias.
Apoyamos a definir su espiritualidad individual y su relación con la Iglesia de Jesucristo de los Santos de los Últimos Días.
Affirmation is a refuge to lend to you
to share, and to be authentic.
A afirmação é um refúgio, é um lugar para encontrar, para curar, para compartilhar, para ser autêntico.
La afirmación es un refugio para llegar, para sanar, para compartir y ser auténtico.
We are so glad you are here. We are so glad you are here.
Estamos muy contentos de que estés con nosotros.
We are so glad you're here.
E nós estamos muito felizes que você está aqui.
We are so glad that you're here.
We are so glad you are here.
Welcome to Affirmation.
Bienvenidos a Afirmación.
Welcome to Affirmation.
Welcome to Affirmation.
Bienvenido à afirmação.
Welcome to Affirmation.
Seja bem-vindo à afirmação.
Welcome to Affirmation.
Thank you. These are your children's peers who have been through, who have traveled the road before, and who are here to support both you and your children. As you know, the full name of our organization is Affirmation, LGBTQ Mormons, Families and Friends. We understand the key of families in this process. We understand the key of having friends. This is what helps build a supportive community that helps raise the mental health, the emotional health, the physical health, and the spiritual health of LGBTQ people. And the church is full of mentors, and Affirmation has assembled this. It's interesting. I was talking a few years back with Lisa Tensmeyer Hansen. She is a world-renowned therapist for LGBTQ kids, and her therapy group exists in Utah, and it's called Flourish Therapy. And they provide culturally competent counseling for families of those who have LGBTQ children. And one of the things that I was lamenting is there's still a lot of homophobia and transphobia that's just baked into our society. And a lot of times young and new parents are worried about exposing their children to older gays, older transgender people. And that really restricts the ability to connect intergenerationally with just some of the very best people that have walked this planet, and that are the LGBTQ peers that cluster within Affirmation. And she agreed that was something that she works and she tries to help, is to bridge that gap of how do we connect generations together. And Affirmation works very hard to do that with our network of just outstanding peers that are here. So Affirmation is LGBTQ centric. We're LGBTQ led. And in so doing, we prop up and we believe that LGBTQ people are reliable reporters of their own experiences, and their experiences matter for so much of history. And even in now, people do not understand the history and the needs and the wants of LGBTQ youth, young adults, and adults. And we understand the importance of everyone's experience in their stories. Affirmation holds these stories dear because that's part of the telling, which helps other people and which also helps heal the person that tells their story. And so in Affirmation, sometimes you'll hear very authentic stories of hurt, of anger, of sadness, because that's all part of the experience as a sexual or gender minority. But the goal is not the destination. The destination is resiliency. The destination is happiness and health. And we want to show as peers that life is really good. Life can be so great as an LGBTQ individual. So we welcome all stories. Fiona Givens spoke to us in one of our international conferences, and she spoke about, before you can bear another person's burdens, you have to understand the other person's burdens. And she says, how in the world can you understand their burdens if you haven't listened, sat with them? She said in a very beautiful way, or knelt with them and touched their cross as they are moving towards their Savior. And in touching the cross, we can listen to these stories and listen to the experiences and truly understand how we can be most helpful, and not come in with prescriptive ideas, but be helpful in creating great well-being within our LGBTQ families. We just don't bear burdens or mourn in Affirmation. We do have a lot of fun. And when we get together, just because I think our culture and Mormon culture, we become fast friends within 5 minutes of each other, and we make connections that are very helpful and healing to one another as we meet. And COVID has made us go online, and we're dealing with online, okay, but as soon as it's safe to meet again, we can start meeting again in person and make these connections in person. As a professional LGBTQ organization that has a mission that is very LGBTQ affirming, and a vision to be a place where people can come and land and heal and share and be authentic. I just want to conclude with the invitation to go to our website, go through the offerings that we have. If you go to our stories and resources site, you'll see that we have places where we have grouped help and stories for the transgender, intersex, lesbian, gay, bisexual, asexual, or aromantic population. We have mental health topics. We have great topics about families and friends and church leader topics, all things to help you as you're building your family and as you're affirming your children. Affirmation has, really I have about 4 goals that I want to share with you, what we desire to see. Families are so important, and just know that you are here. You care about your own children and you desire to move forward. Know that we have special things for you. We are having our conference September the 11th through the 12th and September 18th through the 19th. This international conference will be online because of COVID. Hopefully this will be the last year we do it. But we're going to have 2 special offerings for you. First, we're going to have an offering for your children, for your youth, really of any age. Shauna Jones, who you met here at the beginning, is leading a youth track. And that's for youth ages, is it 11 or 12, Shauna?
12 to 18. Like
12 to 18. And she has assembled 5 LGBTQ leaders that are they are so relevant and so relatable to the youth, and they will work through these tracks in a way that will build and bless the lives of your LGBTQ children. It is a wide and diverse net of people that will be running our youth track this year. So I invite you to register your youth, come and join, and have them come and connect with other youth their ages. We also will have a track for you as parents. And here we are going to bring in experts in the field, and we're going to talk about some of the very precise things that just need to be talked about in your families, from mental health care specialists, from other professionals that would include, like dating or transgender 101 information, sexual health, ways that you can help build your family together, and what to do if your children decide that it's not safe to be in church and they step away. How can you help support them? This often creates some tension within a family. But all of these things will be discussed and in a very safe space and by very intelligent, smart people. So I invite you to please come and join us at our Affirmation conference. So just register here on our website and join us in September for something that will be proven to be very, very well done for both you and your family. Lastly, let me just remark about 4 goals that I would like to see. First of all, we now live in an age that is church supported and family centered. And I see this as a great time where us as parents, we're standing at like Lehi and Sariah underneath the tree of life, and we're calling to our children. And we are wanting our families to be together with us. And we can now have a church that can support us as a family-centered organization to have our family all together. And along with that, my goal is I hope that you don't feel that you need to leave your children behind. Back in the day, the church taught that you could leave your children behind, and that and it would be a family without your LGBTQ children. And I've seen so many parents that are just refusing to leave their children behind any longer. I know Elder Oaks once said, it's okay, parents, you can tell your kids to, come over, but don't bring your boyfriend or your spouse, and set those boundaries, and you can tell them not to come. To what's happening now. I mean, my parents just the other day invited me and Matt to come and spend time with them and be a part of their life out in St. Louis. I mean, it's wonderful to see how the changes have happened where parents are refusing to ostracize and leave their children behind. And then lastly, I see that, us as parents of LGBTQ youth, we stand in a very unique position and time to where we can be the examples to all of Zion throughout the church as points of light, as we can show that inclusive families are families of safety, families of love, families of hope, and an example of what a church can look like when it is not afraid of their own LGBTQ members. And when families can show that love and acceptance really does pave the way and really does breathe life into what it means when the scriptures say all are alike unto God. And so I support you on this. I am going to give resources. We will bring resources for you. And I am just so grateful that you came. I hope that you can understand what Affirmation is about. I hope that you now can know me better. My information, you can contact me at any time. My information is on the website. Feel free to email me. If I don't know, I know people who know. And so I want you to understand that you have so many great resources, and Affirmation is one of those. So thank you tonight for being with us. I appreciate all of you. And Mom and Dad, thank you. I love you very much. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Nathan. Are there any questions? Would anyone like to ask questions? Maybe if you'll stop sharing your screen now, Nathan, then we can see all the faces. There we go. Does anybody have questions that you'd like to have answered about Affirmation or just in general? You can put them in the chat box if you are not comfortable talking. Okay. If there are no questions, you're welcome to hang out and visit. I'm happy that we've had as many come as have for this first meeting. Our next Fireside, I'm planning on bringing my youth track team with me to talk to you, just so you can get to know us. If you have a teen that you're considering sending to the youth track, I want you to know us as leaders and feel comfortable sending your kids to us. I have some really amazing leaders that help me run the youth track, and we always have a good time when we meet in person. We usually have a dance and a service project, and so we've had to kind of juggle stuff while we're virtual, but it's still a really great opportunity for kids from all over to talk to each other and just to find other kids who come from an LDS background, you know, who have maybe similar feelings or experiences. And anyway, there's a lot of power in just knowing each other. So I want to thank everybody for coming. Feel free to stay as long as you want and chat or ask questions, but thank you for coming. We'll see you in a couple of months when we have another one, hopefully.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Shauna.
Thanks.
Thank you everyone again for being here. Sure appreciate you.